Well, good morning, everybody. If you will, please stand with us. We're going to start a time of worship. I'm going to sing a couple songs. You're going to hear a great message. We're going to try to get you out of here in the next hour.
Fill me with peace, give her mercy or my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Faithful you are, faithful forever. Faithful you are, and all your promises are yes and amen. Sing that again. And all your promises are yes and amen. And child of God. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Sing it out. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, Jesus, the name above every other. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Breath we could ever breathe, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. So now we're moving into another part of the song, and it's our response to His holiness. In this song, it talks about how we build our lives on His love. What that's called in kind of the church land, it's called foundation. We put our foundation in Jesus because He's someone that we can put our faith and our trust in. And He's the one, whenever there's a storm in our life that comes, He's the one that helps us. He helps us in that storm to where our foundation doesn't crumble. It doesn't, when we build our houses, we don't build them on sand. We build them on a good foundation, or, if a storm happens, that house is going to crumble.
So in the same way with our faith, are we going to put our faith in Jesus, or are we going to put it in ourselves? Because if we put it in ourselves, sometimes we fail. We fail a lot, actually. I don't know about you, I fail a lot. You know? And it's totally fine. Being a Christian, you're going to fail. It's okay. I'm reminded of a father's love. Whenever you're growing up your child, you know, the kid is going to walk to you time and time again, and you know he's going to fail. He's going to fall right in his face sometimes. And God is the same way. We're walking over to him, and we're just falling on our face every time. But he's like, you know what? I don't even care. Come on over. Isn't that awesome? So let's sing about this love. Let's sing about his foundation. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Jesus, I thank you for this time of worship, where we just get to reflect on your goodness, who you are, your holiness. Thank you for being so set apart from us, for being so worthy of our praise, so worthy of our worship. And Lord, I pray as Jason comes up and speaks your word, I pray you'd speak to him and speak to our hearts, Lord, so that we can learn something new about your love today. Jesus, I thank you so much for my Father in my life, but I thank you so much for being my Heavenly Father as well. And Jesus, I pray for those in this room that doesn't know what an earthly father is like, but I pray that you'd step into their lives where they're at right now, Lord, so that they can know what a Heavenly Father is like. So we love you so much, Jesus. We pray this in your name. Amen. As you guys are having your seat, go ahead and say hi to someone new that you haven't met yet.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day from me and Hope Church. Thanks for being here today. Hey, if you're a dad, if you're a guy, guys in the room, We like cool stuff. Anybody else like trinkets and things? I don't know, maybe not like me. I'm a nerd. But we've got this for all the guys in the room, all the dads in the room, future dads to be one day. This is going to fit on your keychain. We got a little Hope Church logo there. Looks pretty awesome. You got this thing on the back. It's got a screwdriver. It's come on, dudes, right? It's got a light on it. Come on. Tape measure right there. Come on now, come on. Who wants this guy right here? Ready for it? There we go. Hey, good toss. So give it up for him. Come on. So thanks for joining us on Father's Day. I hope you have special plans with your father if you're able to, or you talk to him on the phone if you're not in the same area as him. And I realize on days like this might be that reminder that Dad's no longer able. You can't call him. You can't go have lunch with him. And it could be a hard day for some of you, but I pray that you just enjoy the memories of your dad today, if that's you. And rest in the love that God in heaven has for you as your Father in heaven. And I just pray that today would just encourage you. And I'm glad you're here. This is your very first Sunday. Welcome to Hope Church. We've got a gift for you at our Connect tent. You should have gotten a Connect card on your way into the auditorium. You can mark this as your first day and drop that in the buckets on the way out of here. Or you can text that you're new. That's not it, but you can text that you're new to 816-466-4747. We would love to follow up with you this week. Just say thanks for visiting. If you don't have that gift, it's awesome. I saw somebody over here drinking coffee out of it this morning. It gives you, if you're a coffee drinker, even if you like soup, it's a huge coffee mug. It's great. You can eat your cereal out of this thing every morning if that's what you want to do. But we're glad that you're here. Thanks for checking out Hope Church. We're actually, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing baptism. So if you or anybody that you know would like to be baptized in water, take that faith that you have that maybe was a private decision one day in your life, recently or long ago, and you want to go public with that faith, and you want to go through water baptism, we would love to have that opportunity to celebrate with you. You can sign up on your Connect card today, or you can text the number on the screen. It's going to be happening in 2 weeks on the 30th, so we're excited about that. And you could sign up, like I said, today or online. We want to see as many people baptized as possible. We've seen to date we've seen 39 people commit their life to Christ since we started this church 4 months ago. Praise God. Amen. So here in the baptism, we help with that. And the ushers are going to come down. They're going to help me take up our offering. And if you're brand new with us, listen, we don't want anything from you. We're not about money. We just want you to enjoy, sit back, relax, enjoy the message here that we share in just a minute. But if you did come today prepared to give, we have 3 ways you can do that. You can give by a text message. That's the simplest, easiest way. Or you can give online on our website, or you can give in the buckets that come by here in just a minute. I see them back there somewhere, so they'll make those buckets come by here in just a second. But as they're getting ready, why don't you check out this great video, and we'll keep going with our service. Happy Father's Day. We are in part 5 of our series called Follow. And if you've missed any of these messages, we don't want you to miss, but we've got you covered. Don't worry. You can watch all of these messages at our website at hopechurchkc.com/messages. You can watch those. And today, if you know of anyone, we usually live stream our services and then we put them on our websites. They're on Facebook and they're on our website. We're running into some technical issues today, but we will get that message up on our website as fast as possible tomorrow or later today if we can. So we're in part 5, so you can watch any of these messages. But in this series, we've been asking the question, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And we've been looking at stories of Jesus where he's invited people to follow him, where he's talked about what it means to follow him. And we've answered some important questions like, who gets to follow? What do you have to believe? Do you have to be perfect? And if you're going to follow Jesus, where's it going to go? I mean, what's the end game? Where does it lead? What's the finish line look like? And last week we actually answered the question, if you follow, what are you supposed to wear? And I would encourage you to go back, and you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back and watch that message. It'll encourage and inspire you. But today I want to move forward in the series and talk a little bit about the fine print. Everybody say, fine print. Now, in a contract, there's this big promise, there's this big, thing that you're signing the contract to get. But how many remember, if you read carefully, there's a whole lot of smaller, fine print that none of us ever take the time to actually read, do we? We just sign our name and our life away, and in that fine print are some important things that we should pay attention to. And so if we looked at what that is for following Jesus, if there is fine print, then what would it be? I mean, there are definite advantages and big payouts for following Jesus. That's what this entire series is all about. But as you've discovered, and as everyone ultimately discovers, at some point along the way, following is going to cost you something. There's a price to pay to follow Jesus. And it's in that moment that you discover that cost, that you discover whose you really are. And you discover whether or not you are a Jesus consumer or whether or not you are a Jesus follower. And today I want to look at a story found in one of the 4 accounts of Jesus' life, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is found in Mark chapter 8. And to kind of set this up, at this point in Jesus' ministry, a lot of people have been following him. And a lot of people have been following him for what they can get out of it. I mean, they've seen miracles. It's been incredible. They've been fed. Jesus is incredible as teacher and storyteller. So he's captivated them. But Jesus knows that they've been consumers and not necessarily followers. So to kind of help them wrestle with what following will cost them, the fine print of following him, he does a little teaching to help contextualize it. Because it's important to know that while following Jesus does have its benefits, we talked about that over the series. I mean, you'll become a better person. You'll be more kind, more gentle, more honest. You'll be more generous. You'll forgive quicker. You'll have greater peace. You'll have faith that helps you overcome fear. You'll serve others with joy and enthusiasm. And then to top it all off, there's heaven, and that's an incredible benefit of following Jesus. I mean, there are huge benefits to following Jesus. In fact, Jesus even said that if you follow and obey what I teach, it's like you build your house on a rock. And if you don't, it's like you build your house on sand. And when the storms of life come, those who build on the rock will stand and make it, and those who don't, who build on the sand, well, they won't. And you've all seen that probably play out in your life. So there are benefits to following Jesus. It will help you and help your life get better and make you better at life. But there at some point, inevitably, for all of us, is an inevitable price to pay. So Mark chapter 8, Jesus explains what that looks like to his first century followers to follow. And he says, this is what Mark says. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around the city called Caesarea Philippi. And on the way that they were walking, he asked them a very interesting question. Who do people say I am? And Jesus knew by this point that a buzz had grown about him. People were talking about him. People were interested in what he was doing, what was going on. So he looks to his closest followers and he says, hey, what do you think people are saying about me? What are people saying about me? And they replied to Jesus, some say that you're John the Baptist, who had recently died. He had been beheaded. Some thought that maybe he had come back to life in the form of Jesus. And others say that you are the Old Testament prophet Elijah. And still others think that you're one of the other prophets from the Old Testament. But Jesus looks at them and he says, but what about you? What do you guys think? Who do you say I am? And Peter is that guy that speaks before he thinks. You know anybody like that? He raises his hand. I know who you are. You are the Messiah. Now, Messiah is a Jewish term. The Greek term for Messiah is Christ. Some of you thought Christ was Jesus' last name, right? It's not. It's actually a reference to Messiah. It's not Mary Christ, Joseph Christ, Jesus Christ. It's Jesus Christ, the Lord, the Savior, the Messiah. And all that means is the anointed one, the called one, the special one. So we know who you are, Jesus. You're the one we've been waiting for. God's messenger, God's anointed one. I know who you are. You're the Messiah, the Christ. And Jesus responds this way. Jesus warned them not to tell anybody about it. Wait, what? Wait. He says, yeah, I thought that we're supposed to. I thought we're to tell people about you. And Jesus goes, exactly. I am that. You are supposed to tell people, but hold on. Shh. It's not the right time to let everybody else know exactly who I am. Just not yet. Hold on a second. He does this a lot in the Gospels. Shh. Don't tell anybody. He'll do a miracle. Oh, they want to say, oh, God is incredible. I met the Christ. And he'll say to them, shh, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Not yet. It's not time for them to know. But once his closest followers know who he is, he takes this opportunity. You know now that I'm the Lord. You know now that I'm the Christ. He begins to tell them what the price is to follow him. And he began to teach them. He said, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the teachers of the law. And to make it worse, Jesus says that even after all of that, the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, I will be killed. And after 3 days, that's a whole other sermon, but he says, I'm going to die, I'm going to be killed, and 3 days later, I'm going to rise again. And he spoke clearly, plainly about this to his disciples. And Peter, remember the guy who just said, you're the Messiah, you're the one who was sent by God, he took him aside and he began to rebuke Jesus. Now this takes some guts here. Pretty arrogant to do this to the Son of God, who you know is God. And Jesus is telling his closest followers, here's what's going to happen. Things are going to get really bad. They're going to get really tough. And you're following me now, and it's been great. But things are going to get hard and bad for me. And I hope that when they do, you'll still follow me. And Peter pulls Jesus kind of aside out of the crowd and with the other disciples, and he says, listen, don't go negative on us now, man. I mean, everybody loves you. Things are good right now. Look at everybody who's following us. Everywhere we go, man, there's a crowd. You're famous. I'm kind of famous, and John, he's not as famous as me, but we're all kind of famous. And I mean, you don't stop talking about death and dying, and don't go negative on me. Let's stay positive here. You're the Messiah after all. I mean, you can't be killed. Do you remember that day you spoke the storm on the Sea of Galilee? Remember we were in the boat? Remember it was out of control. We thought we were going to die. And you spoke to the weather, and the weather obeyed you. How can you be killed? You're the Son of God. No more negative. Let's go back over there to the disciples and that crowd, and let's talk about something positive. Let's talk about prayer. You talk a lot about that stuff, but no more about death, no more about dying. Peter rebukes Jesus. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebukes Peter. Get behind me, Satan. This is crazy harsh. You don't want to hear this ever coming out of the mouth of Jesus. He says, get behind me, Satan. And listen to why he was so harsh with Peter. And we know that this is accurate, because Mark, who wrote this down, got this firsthand from Peter. All of Mark's gospel came directly to us from the apostle Peter. Had Peter wanted to change this story so he came out looking better than he does, he could have done that. You know, the fact that we have an embarrassing story about Peter right after Peter says that he's the Messiah, Peter's the one sharing it with Mark, it helps you and I know that what we're reading is accurate, authentic, and it is honest. Because he could have easily left this out. We could have thought the world of Peter, wow, what great faith. But immediately after this incredible act of faith, you're the Messiah, he shares this very humiliating, very embarrassing story. Peter doesn't have anything to hide. But he wants us to understand something important. Immediately after he acknowledges Jesus as Messiah, this embarrassing story is included. So we can know this is what really happened. And here's why Jesus got so harsh with Peter. Jesus says, you do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Jesus is saying, Peter, you don't have God's concerns in mind. You're only thinking about your own concerns. And he kind of calls Peter out a little bit. Peter, let's just be honest, dude. You've enjoyed following me. This has been good for you, right? I mean, you're Peter. Everybody knows you. You're the rock. It's good for you. It's good to follow me right now. But Peter, you're acting like a consumer, not a follower. A consumer is in this for only what they can get out of it. I want you to be my follower, which means wherever I go, somewhere that might cost you something, or somewhere you might not like, or you might not agree with, I want to know that you're going to be with me even then. That you're still going to follow me, even if you don't agree or like it. And the reason I'm rebuking you so harshly is because you just revealed something important. You're not concerned about what will happen to me. You're concerned about what's going to happen to you when what happens to me happens to me. This is all about you right now, Peter. And Jesus decides to use this as a teaching moment, not only for his 12 apostles, but for everybody else in the crowd. And he reveals in this next few verses the fine print of what it will cost us to follow him. And he calls the crowd back to him. Apparently they had a sidebar with his 12 apostles. And he calls the crowd all back around him, along with his disciples, and he begins to teach them. And he says something to them that's very important. What he says to them should be taken literally, because it's literally about what's about to happen to Jesus. He's literally going to go to Jerusalem. He literally will be arrested, put on trial, crucified, killed, he'll die. And listen, he's telling them this because if you follow too closely, behind the person who's arrested, tried, and crucified, you might also be arrested, tried, and crucified as well. So Jesus wants to help these guys know up front what following is going to cost them. So he tells them, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their own cross and follow me. Let's leave that up there for a second. Whoever wants to be my follower, whoever wants to go where I lead, not just be a Jesus consumer who follows for what you can get out of it. If you really want to be my follower, then from time to time, you're going to have to deny yourself. Now that's a big, scary concept. But it's not hard. You do this all the time. If you had dinner recently and you were out at dinner and you finished your dinner, you do this all the time. It's time for dessert. How many of you are dessert orderers? It's time for dessert. You say no to yourself. No, I don't think I'm going to order dessert today. I'm going to be self-controlled, right? No dessert for me. I'm going to deny myself. To deny yourself simply means to say no to you. This is something I want, but no. I don't think it's best, or this is something I like, but no, I'm saying no to me. So we all know what it means to deny ourselves, and Jesus is saying there's going to be a time in your life, there are going to be moments, there are going to be these forks in the road, these intersections, these crossroads, where what I want for you and what you want for you aren't going to be the same. They're going to be different. And in that moment, you have to decide if you're going to be a consumer or a follower. And if you decide to be a follower, then you're going to have to deny yourself, say no to yourself in order to say yes to me and follow me. And he looks at this crowd and he says, I don't want you to miss where this is going. I don't want you to be uninformed. I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't want to pull any punches. I don't want you to be surprised one day. So here's the fine print. If you follow me from this point forward, then you better mentally and emotionally strap on this idea that you're going to have to deny yourself and take up a cross even maybe and follow me. Now when we think of the word cross, we think of jewelry, right? A necklace or something else. We think of that filtered, toned down picture our parents or grandparents had up on their walls in their house, right? Or maybe we saw a movie about the crucifixion and it was gory, yeah, but there was emotional music playing, so it made it easier for us to see it and experience it. But we've never seen one actually take place. We've never heard one take place. We've never smelled a crucifixion take place before. We've never seen it, felt it, heard it before. But the group that was sitting there listening to Jesus tell them this, they saw it every day because Rome left those bodies on those crosses as long as they could to terrify those people into submission, that this was going to happen to you if you don't do what we say. It was a horrible way to die, dying on a cross. And Jesus is saying to them, listen, you need to understand that following me may cost you something. You might have to deny yourself, and it might come to the point where you have to take up a cross in order to follow me. Now you can imagine they're probably feeling scared to death. I mean, we would be. Some of the people in the crowd, no doubt, probably were thinking, this is that moment where they become like in sync. They say, oh, bye, 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 Jesus. No more of this. We're not following you. The miracles have been great. I've enjoyed it. Dude, you healed my sister. Thanks for healing my mom, my dad. You healed my mother-in-law. I still don't know how I feel about that, but thanks anyway about that. Thanks for feeding me. That was awesome. And I heard about that walking on the water thing. That's got to be incredible. But now you're telling me that to follow you is going to cost me something? I'm not so sure that it's worth it anymore. So peace. I'm out of here. And Jesus knows the hearts of every person. He knows the hearts of us, you, me. He knows the hearts of those who he was talking to in the first century. He knows us. And he knows what scares us. It's going to cost something to follow him. And I get it, because I'm just like you, and sometimes we're not sure if following and giving that up and the cost is worth it. And maybe you're here, and maybe that's why you left the church. That's why you stopped following Jesus, because it cost too much. And maybe you're here today, you're listening, and right now you're thinking, I just want to do my own thing. Later, when I'm older, 60, when I'm 70, maybe then I'll follow Jesus. After I've done all the things that I want to do, then I'll do what he wants me to do. And it's not that you don't believe, it's that you just don't want to say no to you. I get it. You get it. Jesus understands it. Jesus gets it. So Jesus looks at this crowd and he says, now, before you all leave and you abandon this and you get freaked out, let me help you. Let me put this invitation to follow me and the cost involved a little bit to a broader context. And listen to what he says to this crowd. This crowd that in this moment is worried about what it's going to cost them, whether it was worth it to follow Jesus. Listen to what Jesus says to them. He says, for whoever wants to save their life. Anybody in the room this morning, you want to save your life? Let me see your hand. That's all of us, right? I want to save my life. That's me, Jesus. I raise both of my hands right here. I want to save my life. You want to save your life. Everyone listening to Jesus automatically goes to, yeah, of course I want to save my life. Everyone in the crowd, like, yeah, that's me. We got common ground. Jesus is the greatest communicator in the history of the world. He gets everybody listening all on the same ground. They are tracking with him. He says something that they're all like, yep, I want to save my life. Okay, whoever wants to save their life, check it out. You're still going to lose it. No matter how well you eat. And this isn't an excuse to just go off the wagon, right? No matter how much you exercise, no matter what you stay away from, that's not healthy, or no matter what bad habits you'll break, no matter how many good habits you have, no matter how hard you work to save your life, the reality is, Jesus is saying, one day all of us, we're going to lose this life because all of us die sometime. And Jesus continues, but whoever loses their life, for my sake, for me, and for the gospel, well, they'll actually save their life. Whoever loses their life, they say, what are you talking about? We're all going to lose our life, he said. So whoever chooses to follow me and in the process loses their life that you're eventually going to lose anyway, or loses something important of value to you that you're eventually going to lose anyway the day that you die, or who loses a relationship that's so important to you that eventually when you die you're still going to lose no matter how hard you work at that, or who loses anything that you consider to be important to you in your life, anyone who loses these things that have value to you that you all will eventually lose anyway, if you follow me and you lose them, you won't have lost it. You will have actually saved your life. It's total contradiction. Blows their whole way of thinking up. Because I know I'm freaking you out. I know I'm scaring you. But I just need you to know the fine print. I just need you to know the end game. That the life that you're trying to save, that you're working so hard to hold on to, you're eventually going to lose it. But if you follow me, and you lose your life in the process of following me, whatever life is to you, if you follow me and you lose that opportunity at work, or if you follow me and in following me you lose that relationship, or if in following me you lose something that you consider to be valuable, then I just want you to know you're going to lose it anyway. But if you lose it for me because you decided to follow me, and in following me there was a fork in the road, or you had to say no to you and yes to me, I'm telling you, you're actually saving your life. Because what seems like a loss is no loss at all, because you're going to lose it anyway. And Jesus is saying, I'm giving you an opportunity to lose it for a purpose that's greater than yourself, for a meaning attached to it that goes beyond you and your life. And then Jesus asks him a very important question, something you and I need to pay attention to. He asks this question, for what good is it for you to gain the whole world, yet forfeit your soul? Forfeit just means to give up, to pay, to trade in, to lose. What good is it to gain everything, yet give up what's most important? Jesus is saying, hey, let's play a game, imaginary game. Let's imagine you have everything you ever wanted. You have all the things, all the money. You know all the people. You've got every opportunity. You literally have the whole world. Wow, people look at your life and they say, they've got it all. They've got the whole world. I mean, look what he drives. Look where he lives. Look where he travels. Look how he travels. Look who he travels with. Jesus is saying, listen, what good is it if you had everything that you ever wanted, and then at the end of your life that you're trying to save, that you're eventually going to lose anyway? What if at the end of your life that everybody else was jealous of, what if at the end of that great life that you're not going to be able to hold on to, if you forfeited, gave up, and lost what was most important to you? You gave up and traded off your soul. Now, if you're here and you're a person who doesn't believe that we have a soul, there isn't such a thing as the soul. When you die, you just die. That's actually a pretty common belief in the world, even stretching back to Jesus' day. In fact, most of the people listening to Jesus that day believed this. There was a religious group in the Jewish community called the Sadducees. And they believed that once you died, that was it. You were here for God's pleasure, and once you died, death is the end. That is why they were sad, you see. Little Bible trivia, little Bible humor. Use it at work tomorrow. You won't have to pay me anything. Just go ahead and act like it was your own. The Sadducees, they said there's no resurrection of the dead. There's no afterlife. There's no heaven. There's no hell. You just die. But then another religious group comes along called the Pharisees, and they say there is an afterlife. There is a heaven. There is a hell. And Jesus says, Pharisees, you got it right. There is. Jesus believed in a real place called heaven, and that your soul goes there when you die. And so Jesus is saying to them, what if at the end of the most incredible, most awesome, imaginable life that you could have ever lived, what if then you realize that when you had everything and you held on to it, in actuality you forfeited your soul, you forfeited eternity? What if that happened? Maybe you're like, what does it mean to forfeit your soul? Jesus doesn't tell us what it means to forfeit your soul. But I don't think it's a good thing. How many of you would agree? Probably not a good idea to forfeit your soul. Maybe it means you're just out of existence. Maybe it means like a flame snuffed out. Maybe it means hell. Maybe it means you're tormented for eternity. We don't know in this story, because in this story, Jesus doesn't choose to answer that. But if we look in other places in the New Testament, Jesus answers that question. And he believed not only in a real place called heaven, but he also believed in a real place called hell, that we will spend eternity somewhere. And Jesus says, what if you had the most amazing life, and you worked so hard to hang on to it, but in working so hard to hold on to what you're never going to lose, what if you gave up what was most important? Now, how would you respond to that? And because Jesus is a brilliant communicator, he's got everybody in the crowd thinking about that. And then he continues. Well, what could, or what would, in our case from the future, you give in exchange for your soul? Let's say at the end of your awesome life, you've got massive possessions, everybody knows you, you've got everything you could possibly want. At the end of your life, it dawns on you, all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I'm about to go into an eternity where I have forfeited my soul. And Jesus says, in that moment, what would you trade to get your soul back? And everybody in the room here knows the answer, and everybody in that audience knew the answer. We would all trade everything. We would give up whatever it took to get our soul back. You would negotiate. You would give whatever. What do I have to do not to forfeit my soul? Give everything away? Fine, boom, you have it. I'm going to lose it anyway. I'm going to give it back to you. And in that moment, Jesus shows us something important. He answers two very important questions. What good is it if you gain everything, the whole world, and you forfeit your soul? The answer, it's not good. It's very, very, very not good. And the second question, what would you give in exchange for your soul? We would all say, I would give everything. everything. This is the most important thing. Nothing else is as important to that. To which Jesus, the brilliant teacher who's got everybody thinking about what he's talking about, he says, look at what you just discovered about yourself. You were just scared about what it would cost you, whether it was worth it to follow me. You were afraid 5 minutes ago to follow me because of what it might mean for you and what you would need to give up. And those of you who were afraid of what would cost you, you just made a remarkable discovery about yourself. You just discovered that your soul is greater than your things. You consider your soul to be of greater worth than all of your possessions. You consider your soul to be of greater worth than anyone you would ever know or have a relationship with. You consider your soul of such great value that there are literally scenarios where you would trade everything in order to save your soul and not forfeit your soul. This is a remarkable, life-changing discovery for a person. So the people in Jesus' audience who were so scared a minute ago to follow him and to give up whatever it would cost them realized, oh my goodness, you're telling us that even if I have to deny myself and follow you into Jerusalem, and even if I have to experience pain and suffering, and even take up a cross, even if I have to give up everything that I want and say no to me to say yes to you, because I'm going to lose it no matter what when I die, I can't take anything with me. Even if I lose everything eventually, you're saying I have the opportunity to give it up in such a way that it impacts and influences the destiny and shape of my soul forever. So this really isn't as big of a sacrifice as you made it out to sound like a few minutes ago. And Jesus says exactly. Because if you recognize that you value the future of your soul more than you value anything or anyone in this life that you're going to lose, then you'll say, no matter what the cost, it's worth it. And that reality sank in to everybody in that crowd that afternoon. They were floored. They were speechless. Following him was worth whatever it cost. And because he's Jesus, he's not done it. He could have dropped the microphone, mic drop, truth bomb, boom. He could have ended the sermon right there. But he's Jesus. He has more to say. And these are people, remember, who are literally going to get up and walk with him in a direction towards Jerusalem where their lives would be in danger. And he says this. He says, if any of you, any of the people right there, if any of you are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, in other words, as we go forward, if someone says to you, hey, aren't you one of those Jesus followers? And your response is, no, they were selling stuff. I mean, they were giving away food. I saw a miracle with follower. And no, not me. He says, if any of you who claim to be my follower, but when life gets tough, starts to cost you something, when you have to start denying yourself, and all of a sudden you feel ashamed to be associated with me, then the Son of Man, that's him, he's talking about himself, I'll be ashamed of you when I come in my Father's glory with the holy angels. Now, what in the world is he talking about? The scriptures talk about a moment when Jesus returns in the future, and all of us will have to give an account for our lives. And in that moment, how many of you would agree? You don't want him to be ashamed of you. You want to be on his side. You want to go with the guy who predicted his own death and resurrection, and then he made good on it by his own power and strength. And you want to stand on the side with the guy who's coming back to control and take over and set up an eternal kingdom. You want to go with that guy. Anybody agree with me this morning? Let's go with that guy, not on the other side. But here's something encouraging for you. The guy who saw all this and heard all this and thought, I would never be ashamed of you. Remember Peter? You're the Messiah. I'll never deny you. I'll never be ashamed of you. Well, y'all probably know the story. Not too long after that, Jesus goes to Jerusalem. He gets arrested. After Jesus was arrested, some of his followers are following him in the nighttime to where he's being taken. And a middle school girl, I'm not even kidding, I couldn't make this stuff up, guys. The fact that he chose to leave this in the Gospels shows us how honest and authentic the Gospels really are. A middle school girl asks the adult Peter, hey, aren't you a follower of Jesus? Aren't you one of those Galileans who follow Jesus? And you remember what he said to her? No, not me. No, I'm not a follower of him. No, I don't know the man. 3 times Peter denies that he knew Jesus. Once it began to cost him, he became ashamed to be associated with Jesus. Now, he repented after Jesus rose from the dead, and Jesus forgave him because he's Jesus, and he loves us, and he forgives us no matter what we've done. That's what he does. He forgives. Even though, here's the point. The point is clear. That even though Peter denies Jesus and is ashamed of Jesus, Jesus doesn't kick Peter out of the group. In fact, after he says, Peter, I forgive you, then he says, now I'm going to put you in charge of the whole operation, dude. Please don't do that again. Don't deny me anymore. And Peter never did after that. He never denied. He was never ashamed. Peter would go on to suffer incredible things for Jesus' name. He would die upside down, literally on a cross in Rome for Jesus. He was never ashamed of Jesus again. He was never afraid to suffer or whatever it would cost him. He was ready to trade whatever it cost to follow Jesus because he knew what I want you to know, that following is always worth whatever the cost might ask of us. So what's the moral of the story for you? What's the moral of the story for me is this. This is important. Salvation is free, and it will cost you absolutely nothing. Aren't you glad for that? It costs you absolutely nothing. You can become a child of God simply by placing your faith in God through Jesus. It costs you nothing because at the cross, Jesus paid everything that needed to be paid. He did all the work. He said, it is finished. No more is needed to be done. And if anybody told you that you need to do anything for your salvation, they are not telling you the truth. The truth is, salvation is free, absolutely free. You couldn't earn it. You can't lose it. It is yours forever because Jesus gives it to you. But following Christ in this sinful and adulterous generation, friends, it will eventually cost all of us something. In other words, at some point in your life, in your journey, there's going to be a conflict of interest, and you're going to have a decision to make. And in that moment, you will know that this is the moment Jason was talking about, where the thing that I want to do, I need to do, not to do, is different than what God wants me to do. And in your life, it will feel like a moral imperative. It will feel literally like there's right and wrong. It is not going to be something that everybody else needs to do or everybody else needs to stop doing. It won't be something that everybody else thinks you should stop doing or start doing. But deep in your heart, your conscience will come alive. It will be as if inside of you, you're going to know that to be a Jesus follower, I can't go anymore. I got to stop. I can't participate. I need to stay. I need to leave. I need not to call back. I need not to text them back. I need not to answer. I need not to log on to that website anymore. I need not to take that job. I need not to move. I need not to take the raise or the new position, because to follow and to obey what I want and what he wants are different. And deep inside, the cost of what I'm being asked to do, it's worth it. I'm going to say no to me so that I say yes to God. And it's not going to be a verse that you need, and it's not going to be a sermon that you need. You're just going to know that you know that you know in your heart that in this moment, to be a follower, to follow Jesus, is going to cost me something. And I'm going to have to deny myself. I'm going to pick up my cross and do what God wants rather than what I want. And you're just going to feel it's right or wrong for you. But not only that, but it will feel almost, in some ways, it will feel like a death. Because in some cases, it's going to feel like the death of something that you have wanted your entire life. You've been working towards this moment, for this goal, for that, or for this. And it might feel even like the death of a dream, the death of a career. Or maybe when you were young, you thought when you grew up, this is what it was going to look like, this is what life is going to be like. And then when you have the chance to have that kind of life, you realize now God is asking you to deny yourself and instead do life differently and go and follow him. And if you went forward with what you wanted, it would be like turning your back on God. So instead, you'll say no to you in order to follow him. And it will feel like the death of something. And in that moment, even though it feels like it's something dying, in the long run, it will be a defining moment in your life. Because if you decide to say no to you and yes to your Savior, you're going to discover something you would not have discovered any other way. You will discover in that moment whose you really are. You will discover that you are not a consumer, but you are a follower of Jesus because you said no to you in order to say yes to him. And as difficult as that was, and as agonizing, as hard of a decision as that might have been, as emotional as that has been, I want this for all of you because in that moment, that defining moment, you will never be the same again. And I know this from personal experience. I grew up in the church. I grew up around this kind of teaching about following Jesus. And throughout high school, it helped me. It served me well. It kept me out of trouble. But during my sophomore year at Truman State University, I was on track to graduate with a business degree and go on to law school and enjoy a great life and a great career. And I remember the day when Jesus asked me to say, the path of God and my path intersected, and Jesus asked me to say no to everything that I wanted so that I could say yes to him. No to my plan and yes to his plan when he called me to be a pastor. And I couldn't deny that he called me, and I couldn't run from the fact that he called me, no matter how scary and intimidated it made me feel. I didn't think I could do it, how difficult and emotional and agonizing that decision was for me, because I said no to me and yes to him. I have never been the same. And it cost me. It cost me an entirely different life, an entirely different career. Come on, an entirely different income. I'm a pastor, not an attorney. Come on, friends, you know. But I've never regretted making the choice to follow Jesus. And though in some ways it felt like a death in my life, it was a defining moment. My wife, Betsy, made a similar decision. It cost her to follow Jesus, and it changed the course of her life. After she finished her undergrad degree in Tulsa, Oklahoma, she planned on going to a graduate program, an incredible graduate program out of state that would have translated into an incredible, lucrative career. And one day, after graduating, the Lord asked her to say no to what she wanted, not move, not start that program, but rather stay put, stay in Tulsa, trust God, follow him, and see where he'll lead her. And so she decided to stay in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and get plugged in and connected at a local church. And guess who was on staff at that local church? This guy. She made a decision that cost her in order to follow Jesus. And had she not, friends, we would have never met. We would have never had our two beautiful kids. We would have never started this incredible, life-giving church. We both would have very different lives. I would be an attorney. She would be a counselor. We would have missed all of what God has done in us and through us. But God has never let us down. Following Jesus will cost you something, and it will feel like a death. And in actuality, down the road, you'll see that it was really a defining moment of your life. And honestly, when we started this church, this was what it was like. This wasn't our plan. As great as this is, we were thinking God was taking us somewhere else. We wanted something else. This was way too scary, uncomfortable, out of the box. I've never done anything like this. That freaks me out. I want to know I can do it before I do it. But God asked me to say no to me and yes to him. I know it's been hard, and it's been a defining moment in our life. And I can't say this about every church I've been a part of. But listen, friends, even if I wasn't the pastor, I would go to this church. I can't say that about every church I've been a part of. And maybe you're faced with that intersection right now. What am I going to do? Here's what I want. Here's what God wants. And if I'm going to follow him, I'm going to have to say no to me so that I can say yes to him. And it's hard. And it's going to feel like a death. And you're going to see years from now that this was actually a defining moment in your life. And it's going to cost you something. But you're going to see that it's worth it in time. And even though, I don't have the income of an attorney and she doesn't have the income of a counselor, this has been our experience. And we would be able to say this to you, that no matter what we've gone through, we have never lacked for anything since we made that decision. And God has always provided for our needs on time. And friends, I've been a pastor, and I've been paid little to nothing before. And God always came through and provided for our needs. And God wants to help you know that you can trust him. He'll walk with you. It's going to cost you, but he's with you the entire time. And I want to help you. I want to encourage you. I want to inspire you. There's a verse in the Old Testament book of Jeremiah, a prophet. This is what it says. Even if it costs you something, this is what Jeremiah would say. I want you to know that you can trust God. God says, I know the plans I have for you. These are plans to help, to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Let's leave that up there for a second. Now, that's an incredible verse, an awesome verse when you are fully employed, when you've got money in the bank, your student loans, when they are paid off, the sky is blue, life is wonderful, and you get everything you want. Great verse. But when you're being asked to say no to you and yes to him, and it doesn't look like the Lord has any plans, or if he does, he hasn't made it known to you yet, you have no idea what's going on, and you're being asked to trust God with an uncertain future, when you've done everything right and all you have left is to wait and to wonder, that verse can be very hard to swallow, can't it? Even if saying yes to Jesus and no to you causes you to suffer and have pain, maybe miss out on a job opportunity or a promotion or change your career path, like in my case. Maybe it causes you to lose a relationship with someone important to you. Listen. That's that part that says that God's plans are to prosper you and not to harm you when you feel pain. That's hard to swallow. Salvation is free, and it won't cost you anything. Jesus did all that for us, and aren't you glad for it? But following Jesus is eventually going to cost all of us something, and we're going to lose this life inevitably. Jesus is asking us to trust him, and we will not lose this life. In fact, we will save it. It's different. Whatever it costs you is going to be different than what it costs me. It's not going to be the same. But we have all this in common. It will cost all of us something. And here's the good news. I want you to be encouraged. You don't have to worry about what this is. You don't have to walk out here wondering what you're going to do. The good news is that you're going to realize in the moment. The moment's going to come and you're going to know this is the moment. This is what Jason was talking about. You're going to know what you need to do. You're going to know the right thing to do. And the God who loves you and who's been faithful to you will give you courage and faith to do what you can't do on your own and strengthen you to take a step of faith and trust. And even if it's difficult and even if it's hard and it feels like a death, years from now you'll be able to look back and say, this has been a defining moment of my life. And for some of you who are here, maybe you feel like I've been looking at sermon all week, right? You're like, that's where I'm at right now. I've literally got a decision to make. I got to give an answer this week. I got a text waiting. I got an email waiting to respond to. When I show back up at work tomorrow, I'm going to walk right back into the middle of this mess. Let me just say something to you. Since you just acknowledged that you value your soul more than anything else in this world, and since it can't be a coincidence that I'm talking about this today, and you're sitting here listening right in the middle of it, and since God loves you and is so faithful to you in the past, then I want to invite you, no matter how hard, I want you to follow. Follow me as we follow Jesus together. Even if it's hard, even if it costs you, I want to encourage you, it will always be worth it. Would you stand with me? Because what you're going through right now, listen, friends, it's just a story you're going to tell one day. You're in the middle of it, and it's hard, and there's so many emotions, and it seems like chaos, but you realize this is going to pass. And one day from now, you're going to look back, and you're going to tell this story. And I want you to decide today, what story do you want to tell? Do you want to tell the story where you say, I couldn't say no to me? Or you want to say this, I decided to say no to me and to say yes to him. I decided to say no more what I want. I want what you want. What story do you want to tell? That's what following Jesus looks like. Before I pray, one last thing. That crowd that day that was in front of Jesus with his disciples. There's a bunch of people. Do you know what happened to them? You know what happened to them in their life? Who said, nah, it's not worth it. Costs too much. Yeah, me neither. We don't know. But I guess that after the resurrection, I bet you on the other side of a resurrected Savior, I bet you on the other side of that event, when the streets of Jerusalem were full of followers of Jesus that the book of Acts talks about, I bet you that there were some of those who heard that day, who heard that Jesus had risen from the dead, and saw what had happened in those who chose to follow him. I bet that there were some who wished that they would have given everything to go back to that moment where Jesus was teaching them this lesson and say, I want to follow. Salvation is absolutely free. It will cost you nothing, but following Jesus will eventually always cost you something. And if you refuse to follow him, then it's going to cost you a lot more. Let me pray for you. Right now, Lord, I pray that you give us wisdom to know what to do with what we've heard. And give us courage to do it even if it's hard. Thank you for preserving these stories for 2,000 years so that we could benefit from them today. You love us. And I pray today for my friends who are here, listening online or here in the auditorium. Would you help them trust you with what it means to follow you? Maybe you're here and you're not a church person. You don't know what you believe about God. Maybe God is inviting you today to trust Jesus, to believe that he is the Son of God. He did die for you. He did rise from the dead. Maybe that's where you're at. You're at that intersection of whether or not you even believe it's true. I want to encourage you today, if that's you, follow. Come across that line of faith and say, and put your trust in the one who loves you, who died for you, who rose for you, who's returning one day for you. Because there's an eternity he wants to spend in heaven with you forever. It all hinges on your choice to believe. Salvation is free and it costs you nothing, but it requires faith. And I would encourage you today, if that's you, to trust in Jesus and invite him to become the Lord of your life. Ask him to forgive you. Tell him that you believe that he is the Son of God, that he did die. You believe that he did rise from the dead. It might floor you to hear those words coming out of your mouth, but in faith, make that prayer. And the Bible, Jesus says that you will become a follower, a disciple, a child of God. Maybe you're here, you're a church person. And man, you're in the middle of something that you don't know what to do with. But today, God gave you clarity. You know now what you need to do. I pray that God would empower you with wisdom to know what you are to do and courage to do it, even if it's hard, even if it costs you, even if you look in this moment and it causes pain and it makes you miss out. In time, you're going to see what I've seen and what so many others have seen who have followed Jesus. You're going to say, it was a defining moment in my life and it was worth it. I pray that our faith would be in you, Jesus. Help us to follow and follow where you're leading us right now. In your name I pray. Amen. Well, thanks for being here with us today. We're going to close out in a song. You're free to go, but if you'd like to hang out and worship with us a little longer, you need prayer for anything, we're going to have people ready to pray for you. And if today you made a decision to follow Jesus, mark that on your Connect card. Drop it in a bucket on your way out. Have a great week. Happy Father's Day. Make sure you get that gift before you leave. We'll see you back here next Sunday.
Worthy of all praise. we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you.
Have a great week. Happy Father's Day.